1, we're on.
Okay. Morning, Lenny. Morning, Bob. Morning, Steve. We have a quorum. I'm going to call the meeting to order. Does anyone have any comments on the consent agenda, either the consultant's written report or the staff written report? Okay. Hearing none. On to the minutes. So we had to postpone the August approval of the August minutes because there were some changes that had not been included. I now entertain a motion to approve the August meeting.
I have a correction.
Okay.
On page 2, under, make sure I'm saying this correctly. Fifth paragraph where it starts, Vice Chair Bononi stated there are no final decisions on the site. We're talking about the library. And if we go down into the third sentence there, it says Commissioner Ferger stated in the past he and Chair Bononi have met with the library concerning public art. I don't know where that came from, but Bob and I,
excuse me,
Michelle, didn't do that.
that should have been in Chair Berkowitz.
Yeah.
We met.
Yeah, I
Yes.
thought so too, but I figured, okay, maybe I missed a meeting.
Okay, so that needs change. I also bring your attention to an article that I have asked to be on the agenda with regard to the status of the ordinance for solar farms, that under number 3, there is a reference to a motion that I don't know why that's in there, but it is relevant to the discussion that I want to bring forward. So I would ask you to keep that section of the minutes available to you.
Where is that?
Other than that, I have no other comments.
Excuse me, Michelle, where is that in the minutes? Where is that? In the minutes?
5B1.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing what Jose is asking me. What is it?
Where is it in the minutes? What section, Michelle?
The minutes, number 3 on the first page. And it's referring to the June 9th, 2020.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
That section underneath, it's bolded. I just ask you to hold that so that when we discuss the solar farms, that's germane to our discussion.
Okay. Any other corrections, additions, deletions for the August minutes? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve.
Second by Michelle. All those in favor? Aye. All right.
Aye.
All right, so hold on to those minutes if you have them in hard copy. On to September 8th minutes.
I have a correction.
Okay.
We will be on page 4. Under discussion, number 6, discussion of bylaws, meeting cancellations. And this would be the 4th sentence from the bottom of that first paragraph, which reads, the bylaws reflect Mr. Smith rules of order.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think Robert Smith is being confused with Robert's rules.
Yeah, I saw that.
And as interesting as that is,
Maybe he has his own set of rules. Michelle.
Apparently,
yes. Okay, always one to go by the rules. I would like to read, hopefully, the bylaws reflect Robert's rules of order in the way a meeting can be canceled.
Anything else, Michelle?
No.
Okay, any other corrections, additions, deletions? Okay, hearing none. Entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
almost.
Bob, second by a whole bunch of people.
Second.
Steve, okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, great. That and that is done. All righty. About that. Any public comment? And I see there's some questions here. Hold on for a moment. Okay, we took care of Don. Joyce had a question about a couple of the motions. Joyce, can you ask Jose that maybe?
Yeah, we can get it afterwards from the.
Okay, good. All right.
You don't have to.
I will take care of all those.
Later.
All right. Okay. Any public comment? No? Okay. Can I get rid of you people? Dismiss, answered, open. Whatever. Okay. All right. On to old business. EDC Standing Committee on Ordinances. And Michelle, I assume this is where you want to talk about the section on the agenda?
Yes.
Solar farm policy? Okay.
Yes, just to make sure that Don Poland and I have the most recent status along with all of you, I'd like to ask the Jose, our town planner, what the status of the solar farm ordinance is.
Sure. Yeah, I had brought, given your report and the draft ordinance changes to Planning and Zoning Commission. They were they basically asked me to take those and put them into the format that would fit into our regulations and schedule a hearing for them. Haven't had a chance to do that yet, but I'm working on it, and hopefully sort of like we did with the parking. I took them and I made sure it fit in, and we didn't have any conflicting, any other areas that are conflicting, and then we'll send it over to Mark Needleman for a final look and have a hearing. So hopefully it's kind of late to get it out. Well, it is too late to get on the October. I'm shooting for a November meeting to have a draft ready by, let me see, I'd have to put it up on our webpage by no later than November, I believe. The Planning and Zoning meets on the, I think they meet on the 19th, so it'd have to be fairly quick. It'd have to be by the end of the month. Hopefully I can work on it this week and get it on the agenda for the November meeting. I said we meet a week early because of Thanksgiving.
Okay, so just to be clear, this is the second part of the report that was submitted by Dr. Poland, the ordinance itself, because there seemed to be some confusion about whether we were looking at a policy or not. And I won't go into any of the comments that I have with regard to previous minutes and statements and conversations that we have had, and also specifically citations to Dr. Poland's report, as long as that is clear.
Yes.
The main concern about that was not who had the best idea, but was the fact that we were very concerned about compliance requirements and also the ability of the public to participate in any regulation that we brought forward. And we felt that the best, pardon me?
I know that was just interference, I think, Michelle. Don't worry about it.
Okay, I heard something. Okay, so as long as we are bringing the ordinance forward, that's fine. And if you're going to schedule it for November for public hearing at the TPZ level, that's fine. We should really have, at least Dawn and I, if no one else is interested, I understand that, a copy of the transmittal letter to TPZ, just so we can keep track of it, since maybe as of today, we'll also be working on other things. So that's fine. I won't need to bring forward any of the other documentation that I have.
With respect to the policy, that's before the Land Use and Economic Development Subcommittee. I think they're meeting again next Tuesday. They had asked for input from the CEEC on that, and I think, and I believe they did come up with some good suggestions regarding that being an interim policy and then how to work towards getting a more robust full policy. So that'll be discussed next Tuesday at the Land Use.
All right, so what we are saying though, after the ordinance is enacted, we are no longer operating on a policy. We have an ordinance.
Well, correct, but no, we need both, because the ordinance that we have will only impact those items that are not that don't go before the siting council, that don't quite meet their criteria, 1 megawatt. So that the ordinance will basically say anything under 1 megawatt, like the one at the Board of Ed that wants to be standalone, will have to meet those standards in that. regulation. Now, the state siting council is not, we have no jurisdiction over them. So the adoption of a policy on the council's level is basically guidance. So when we do get a siting council application before us, that will have some standards to bring to the council, siting council, saying, here's our thoughts. And we've thought about this ahead of time. We're not just reacting and being NIMBYists to this particular application. We've thought about it. Either the application meets our criteria or citing preferences, or it doesn't. And maybe we have a little bit more standing before the siting council with a policy in place. So it's a sort of a dual. I think that's why we had a policy and
Okay.
an ordinance.
So you're saying these things would work in parallel. Dr.
Yes.
Poland, what do you have to say?
Nothing.
Well, hearing no objection.
I'm content with Jose's answers.
Okay, so we're running a parallel track here.
Yes,
But
we are.
As long as we have the ordinance that EDC unanimously approved, I'm satisfied because the records have not been reflecting that. The only other thing that I would like to add, and it's part of my questions about solar farm policy, and yet it's not, it's procedural. As I think most everyone knows, the most important part of our minutes, if you do nothing else in recording minutes under Robert's Rules of Order, is that you reflect the motion. And in this particular case, there was a motion that was not reflected in our minutes. And that was, I believe, in the June 9th meeting, because I went back to make sure that I understood where we were. And we've got to have motions reflected, absolutely, if we do nothing else.
Correct. Yeah, again, I just reviewed what's given to me. So I'll make
Okay.
sure we'll go back, and if we have to correct those minutes,
That's fine, bring them forward.
we have the tape and we have the video of those. I can go back and look for it.
Okay, well, I even have notes here. So anybody who wants to review these minutes, because if you go on the town website, they're all there, but they have to be corrected, and it's easy to miss. With everything that I'm doing, I scan them, but I don't do them in detail. So that's very important. Okay, it sounds like we're a go then with regard to solar farm. Unless you need something else from Dr. Poland and myself, Jose?
I don't think so. And Jose, is there anything on, as a joke, on the horizon with solar farm? Any applications that we know of?
Here's a
Not
most
that I know.
interesting thing. The largest solar facility in New England has been presented to East Windsor, and the very largest one is going to be built in East Windsor.
Yep, that's
And-
my town. So I'm aware of it.
Oh, is that where you live?
Yes, I do.
I didn't know that. Okay, so here's the thing that really, this article about it was in, I believe, the Hartford Business Journal and the Hartford Current. But it spelled out that the town of Windsor was happy with the application. Didn't say whether or not they had a regulation. Referred to the siting council and their deliberations with them. And don't quote me on this number because I don't have the article before me. I have it in my stuff, but I don't have it here. They would receive in turn property taxes of in the 350,000+ a year. This is now going to be for the largest solar facility in New England. Simsbury, after all the storm and dang they went through, got 600,000. So what your documentation says and how your processes work when you look at it through the rearview mirror become very important. And whether or not you're prepared for an application, whether you're prepared for a negotiation, having people who are savvy about that industry and know what is fair and realistic with regard to fees. I'm just glad we're heading in this direction, because just reading those two things and saying, you know, what is reasonable for one community might not work for somebody else. So we'll watch that and I'll provide that information because I saved the numbers to anybody who's interested.
Thank you, Michelle.
And,
Anything else? Go ahead.
Bonnie, I think we have a hand raised from David Mann. I don't know if it's about this subject or what. You want me to?
Yeah, please. I don't see it.
Okay, David.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. Question on the ordinance, on the policy, actually. The Planning and Economic Development Committee received an interim policy from Jose at its last meeting. Councilman Curtin wanted this to be sent back to EDC and CEC, who originated the concept, to see whether or not you all agree with the interim policy. So my question is, have you seen the interim policy, and are you in support of it as it's written, or changes required?
If I may add, I think the interim policy was written by the by the EDC.
Yeah.
No, it was not.
The interim policy.
No, Dawn Poland provided an interim policy as part of the report. CEEC came up with their own idea of what that policy should contain. So that's where that is. It's the status of it with regard to the EDC has not been determined, nor is it on our agenda. So if you want to look at that, we can look at that, but I haven't responded to it.
Well, the committee was looking for some guidance before we act on without that, which is not something we want to do. But I thought that was on the item for discussion for this morning, but I guess not.
I apologize. I thought the interim policy was what was in the appendix of the report.
But it wasn't approved by anyone. As a matter of fact, what the EDC approved was only part 2, the ordinance. We did not approve that policy.
Then I wasn't aware of that. I thought.
Okay, we did. Well, that's what's reflected in one set of minutes and not in the other.
Right.
And that was part of the question that
That's
I was
my bad.
answering. So
I-
EDC has not acted on any interim policy. So if you want to do that, we can do that. But I haven't looked at it since.
So
Well, yes, the Planning and Economic Development Committee received it at our last meeting the first time at it and looked it over. And that's why we were looking for some more backup on this. And I think it looked okay, but there might be some particulars that you all and the CEC might find inappropriate or other ideas that might be appropriate. So we asked you if you would comment on that. If not at this meeting, we would have to put it off for another month.
That can be a problem, David.
I don't, that's up to you all. I don't know.
There's
that
nothing on the horizon, right? So we do
Yeah.
want to be able to, this is sort of an ongoing issue about how information and questions flow from one entity to another. It's going to come up in another part of our conversation, but if we missed it, I'm sorry. We will put it on the November agenda, Jose, and we'll act on it then.
yeah, and I do apologize. I asked, for some reason, I thought that you had sent the whole entire document over to both the council and the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, maybe you can circulate that before the next meeting, give everyone a chance to look at it, and then we can comment electronically to one another if we choose to before the meeting, if any questions.
Yeah, I'll go back and make sure.
Okay,
That goes to Michelle's point that we really need to have good motions on minutes so we can get clear direction as to what's going on.
Yeah.
And I just, my notes said pass it along to the appropriate body. So I did the interim policy to the council and the ordinance to the Planning and Zoning Commission. But
I think no harm, no foul, but we'll
all right. Well, yeah, like I said, there's nothing on the horizon. It's no big deal. So we can just make sure just roll myself a note to make sure it gets.
Okay. Michelle, okay.
Yes, I just want to add that you're absolutely right, Bonnie. And I do detect within town administration, there are some people who acknowledge receiving stuff. What we just need is a simple punch list so we know that these documents went out, or in this particular case with regard to solar farm policy, that we received notification that they even had it. So it's a simple thing, and all it requires is a transmittal document that anybody could handle. So
I also think maybe what we need is a flow chart of information so that people understand. I think that after all these years of serving on EDC, the view of what our role is in interacting with other agencies, it still isn't clear.
You know, that's true.
And that's part of the problem, so. Not quite sure how to correct it, other than asking whoever, well, maybe ask Phil, now that he's back, to help us out with this, to give us his view of the flow chart. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Blight ordinance discussion. Michelle, is that also you bringing that up, or?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we're just at the beginning of this. I have brought it up before, but what we are talking about is looking at an actual blight ordinance. And is Don still here, or has he had to leave?
Sure.
Is he here? Okay. Oh, there you are.
Okay, so I just wanted you to hear what I don't see your name on there. I just wanted you to hear in case anything that I'm saying does not align with what you might be interested, because there's no decision even between the two of us. People on the EDC have approached me about this subject with regard to seeing blight conditions in town that over a long period of time are not addressed. And it affects, number one, our grand list. It affects whether or not people wish to locate in Bloomfield, if they are house hunting. These are important issues. It affects how neighbors relate to neighbors. It affects directly to home value, which there's a general rule of thumb. I'm sure there are other percentages too that opine that if you have a home next to yours and it's not adequately maintained, whether that be the structure itself or the landscaping or stuff stored around the house that really shouldn't be there, you are likely to have, you could tell us this too, Bonnie, with your background, a minimum of 15% of the value of your house can be sacrificed by that.
I can't give you a percentage, but certainly when someone is looking at property, they're looking at surrounding properties as well. And we have the other issue in this town because of our demographic makeup, that there's always that feeling, or has always been that feeling, that things just aren't going to be as well maintained as they might be in another community.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm not talking about, such things as just disagreeing with what your neighbor plants in their yard.
I know what you're talking about.
I'm
Yeah.
really talking about seriously deteriorating properties or severely unmaintained properties and running around town. You can't miss those. And the fact that I think that we look at that from the standpoint of a form concept rather than an ordinance, because you need actual definitions, in my view, of blight in order to be able to fairly say to a person, this is what's wrong and this is what has to be fixed. And you're affecting people around you and you're affecting value. Because remember one thing, when your neighbor doesn't maintain their property, it's bringing your property taxes down. And it sort of makes you wonder why you're investing so much in your property when somebody else isn't. Because then the claim could be made that those people who are maintaining, reinvesting in their homes every year are subsidizing those who are not.
Michelle,
On the other side of the coin, there's a question of need and having circumstance where people have such severe limitations that those needs probably will not be met. And then how we can possibly respond to that. So there's a lot that's involved in this. But the fact that we don't have an ordinance and we don't have a way of addressing, other than, as I understand it, code compliance, this is a difficult row to hoe. But I think for Bloomfield's sake, we need this. I mean, drive around. Just because you're used to it doesn't mean that's what our town should look like. And I'm particularly interested in properties that seem to have generations of used lawnmowers, temporary tents with unknown stuff just hanging out of it, trailer camper tops, temporary tents that blow all over the town. And, it's out of hand in a lot of cases. And to be able to point to something so that the person who is communicating with residents can say, look, that's not permitted and here's why it's not. If you need additional storage, there are ways you can do that. I researched and sent on to Dr. Poland just a copy of a general community preservation ordinance on blight prevention and blight address. And that is not to say that we don't want to have our own that's specifically for Bloomfield, but normally you don't have to reinvent the wheels on this stuff. And just looking at a document from the standpoint of looking at the definitions and seeing what they say. And my proposal to Dr. Poland was look this over, see what you think. If you have another one that you think would be better in general terms for everybody to look at, to see if EDC is even interested in this. So now I turn the floor over to Dr. Poland.
Yeah.
Can I just say something? We do have a blight ordinance and we it's called a property maintenance ordinance in a housing code. The problem has always been that when they merged the housing code into the property maintenance code, they left out a very important piece, which was an appeals process. So it became difficult to enforce the housing code. Ultimately, in the courts, the judge would say, "Well, why is it in the courts? Why haven't you appealed to the locals?" So, right now, the Admin and Education Subcommittee is very much into revising, having staff revise that ordinance and beef it up. We're also talking about, and Micah has reached out to West Hartford for their example to have a code enforcement committee, which would be, basically health department, all the different departments in the town that have jurisdiction over things that might cause blight, like the police, building departments, so we could have a coordinated approach to dealing with these issues. So we've reached out to West Hartford. We're hoping to have very shortly put together an initial meeting of that code enforcement committee here in Bloomfield. And work from there. So we do have something in the works, and I'd be happy to work with Don to get his ideas as to whether, I'll send him, if he's not aware of what we have, I'll be happy to send him our section of the town ordinance that covers blight. And we have been prosecuting people for cars. Unfortunately, with COVID, the courts have been closed, but we do have 7 hearings coming up in December. We were able to get on the docket for various violations. So it's not like we don't have something. I think it needs a little bit of beefing up and ability to for people to have some due process at the local level before we send them to the court.
And
Yeah,
Jose,
let me just make a few quick comments. One is I did get a look at your property maintenance code, and I was going to say you guys do have a very robust housing/property maintenance code. So I'm not sure, and it has a definition for blighted premises within it, and it uses blight language. So I'm not sure if a separate blight ordinance is required, but is maybe worthwhile taking a look at kind of how a conventional blight ordinance functions versus this property maintenance thing. My number 2 comment would then be that, this goes all the way back to when I worked doing code enforcement for East Hartford back in the 90s. The enforcement on single family residential properties is just always going to be a challenge. That's not to say you shouldn't do anything with a robust ordinance and pursue it, but it is challenging. It's never easy. Then I'd like to say, I know, Jose, I'm just glad you guys have been in touch with West Hartford, because I do know in West Hartford in recent times, West Hartford had a specific property that was a single family residence that was, overwhelming them. And it revealed the challenges of enforcement on single family properties. But B, I think they've done extensive research and are probably, whatever ordinances they now have, are probably the best position to kind of overcome those challenges. So I'm going to turn this around and say, I think if you want me to be of an assistance and resource to that committee looking at it, I'm very much available for that. And Michelle, I'm also willing to kind of, in the background, do a look at kind of blight ordinances versus the property maintenance code as it is, to see, you know, if I see anything that's missing or if there's something more to be had through a blight ordinance. So.
Yeah, and I've done the same thing. I mean, I obviously looked it up what other towns are doing. I think most towns, the property maintenance is synonymous with their blight. I mean, I don't think there's a difference because, again, blight it's hard to define. We've had a big discussion about grass versus natural landscaping. That issue came up when we cited, you know, some people wanted us to cite a couple of houses that had, and the people who were living in a house, who were college professors, said, we don't fit your definition because you say grass and weeds, and we're planting natural wildflowers, and the neighbors didn't want to hear it, and I think half the council didn't want to hear it, and half said, yeah, there's a place for natural landscaping in town. So how do we resolve those issues where somebody says, well, that looks like tall weeds to me? And there's been court cases about it in New London, I believe, and in other places. So I've done, you know, a little bit of research on that. Unfortunately, it becomes a very emotional issue for some people as to what you know. There's said, blight is in the eye of the beholder. What's blight to somebody may just be, you know, may not be to another. So we have to resolve those issues. So ultimately, we have to look at what's going to happen if we do take it to court. We don't want to be wasting our time if we don't feel it's going to be defensible. So that's why I think it's taken a little bit longer than we'd like to come up with something just to make sure it'll stick.
I would just want to add that this is absolutely a case in point of what we were talking about with regard to solar ordinance, a solar farm ordinance. If we don't know what other groups are doing, I didn't know that was going on. We have talked about blight issues in economic development on the commission for a long, long time. But if we don't know what's going on with regard to other departments, committees, with regard to relevance to the Economic Development Commission, then we can be spending time doing stuff that we shouldn't be doing. So I think that a look at that coordination about when a project is underway, to look at who else has vital interest in that, because I didn't know that was going on. I don't know if anybody else did, but it's a subject that EDC has been interested in for a long time. So when we looking at the end of solar farms, that was next on the agenda. I'm absolutely very happy that that's going on in the committee, which means, I guess, that there's a high council interest in it, which is excellent too. Whether or not an ordinance is needed, I don't know. Just in my experience, I just see I don't want to say a prejudice, but a tendency not to address the ordinance view in a lot of things. And I don't necessarily agree with that. The outcome is the most important thing. The proof is in your outcome. So if you can find something that works, that doesn't require an ordinance, that's great. But hey, ordinances are local laws. Sometimes that's what it takes to get people's attention. So I just wanted to say that because I did not know that this work was going on, but I'm glad it is.
Yeah, I made a note and make sure we'll keep you in the loop of anything
Thank you.
that comes out. Like I said, there's nothing concrete yet, but it's just been on there, an ongoing agenda item for the admin and education subcommittee, which was sort of put on a little bit of hold because of this whole COVID thing and people's, you know, time and efforts on other items. But there's definitely a renewed interest in getting this committee up and running, like using the West Hartford example, and maybe utilizing the health department to a greater extent than we do now, as West Hartford does.
Any other comments or questions? The only comment I wanted to make is just to remind whoever the powers that be that are involved with this, is that there are two pieces to this to which Michelle referred. One is the enforcement and the other is the ability to take care of the problems. I think that is one reason we've had issues with blight in the past, is if you cite a homeowner who doesn't either have the money or the physical wherewithal to fix something, we've got to be able to offer them some kind of resource to go to.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that's probably why the code enforcement committee needs to have somebody from social services on there.
Yes, I
We've
agree.
done that in the past, ad hoc, where, you know, where somebody's been a hoarder and we realize that that's just not a blight issue. It's a psychological, and sometimes, you know, you need intervention by either, you know, someone that the person. So we've done that at an ad hoc basis and sat down and tried to strategize those things. But it'd be nice to have a formal committee where we can sort of look at each one and say, okay, here's the approach we're going to take on this one.
Okay. Good,
You're
thank
right,
you.
Bonnie. I don't think,
Bonnie, if I.
Yes, yes, Steve.
It's even come to the attention in my past experience in the probate court, because sometimes it is a psychological problem that an individual has. And the court has resolved the issues by a specific conservator appointed for the estate to manage the person's property and get the property cleaned up. So it involves all avenues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there has to be a sensitivity to
Yes.
why things look the way they do. All right, I'd like just to go on at this point if there's nothing else. One more ordinance issue, that's the status of the ordinance regarding the, I assume I know what this is referring to, the acts in fire damaged buildings. Michelle?
yeah, Don.
Don?
If I could just quickly, I joined the meeting for the solar and the blight ordinance, so I'm just letting you guys know I'm jumping off. I believe there's other Goma, New York persons here for.
Yeah, Mike's here, and Denise.
So, thank you guys. Have a great day.
Okay, thank you, Don. See you next month.
Thanks.
Okay, Michelle?
From the standpoint of that, I just wish to ask Jose about the status of the former hardware store on Tungus. What's going on there?
I know they've been remediating the oil or the pollution that was caused by the previous gas station on the site before they can move on. But they have their approvals. I know I just spoke with their attorney and trying to get some easements filed. So they're slowly moving along. It's you know, a question of waiting for the remediation to get done and before Mr. Schwartz wants to, you know, do any kind of additional work on the property, just to make sure. But you know, I have, you know, like I said, I did get within the last month got a request to review an easement. So looks like things are progressing to hopefully a resolution.
Is there something prohibiting him from just doing something so the whole facade doesn't look so god awful?
No, there isn't. I mean, I would imagine all the insurance issues have long been cleared up. I mean, at first he said he had to wait for the insurance adjuster to come by, and it took a while, but it's been almost 2 years now, I would think.
Okay, I would bring forward your consideration. One of the things that caught my eye in this blight ordinance that I referred, that Dawn and I were looking over, is entitled Abandoned Construction. And under the definition of blight, it gives a whole laundry list of things. Sometimes you might not consider them as blight, but most of the time you would. This one I would. It's just 2 sentences. I'm going to read it to you. Abandoned construction. A partially constructed, reconstructed, or demolished building or structure upon which work has been abandoned constitutes property blight. Work is deemed abandoned when there is no valid current building or demolition permit for the work, or when there has not been any substantial work on the building or structure for a period of 6 months or more. Quite frankly, I've been in the planning game for a long time, and I believe 6 months is generous with regard to somebody showing what your intentions are. And obviously, the intentions of how the town feels about a property that's in the state that one is. I can't tell you how many people have asked me about it, and people are appalled by it. So, you know, to say that there's nothing happening there, that's not okay. I don't think it is. And if you have a blight ordinance, not to say that we would adopt one that has the language that I just mentioned, but it tells people that, look, if you're going to do something, get moving on it, show some progress. We already know that a site plan approval can only last so long. Building permits have beginnings, middles, and ends. This isn't showing respect to our town, and I have a big problem with it. So such an ordinance would define things that maybe we don't define right now. So maybe we can pass that on to the committee that's working.
Any other comments? Michelle, totally support what you're saying, by the way. Absolutely right about it, especially the disrespecting part. Okay, Bob, public art and other initiatives. Have you heard from Rickford? Did he contact you? Because I asked him to talk to you about what his subcommittee is working on.
No, he hasn't.
He's
And
on.
I reached out to him.
He's what?
Rickford just joined the meeting, so.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, great. Well, I'll ask him to comment after I do, but I'm at this point a third party coming into the conversation, but certainly in the middle of it. I received, this is for the benefit of all the commissioners, correspondence from Bonnie and Rickford Curtin, was it about a week ago? Apparently, and Michelle particularly, this is an instance, hopefully, where what we're doing at the EDC is reaching out to another committee rather than our having to learn about things. There is some discussion, very preliminary, and I'll ask Bonnie to comment, about the importance of art in the town. And Rickford spoke with Bonnie and was not aware that we do have some discussions that have been going on for a couple of years already. And we supposedly are going to start discussing setting up a committee for art formally in the town, not just in our discussions at the EDC. And Bonnie or Rickford, do you want to comment on that? We do have a conversation scheduled for after this morning's meeting in about an hour to get this off and rolling. Any comments from either of you?
Rickford comment on this if he would like.
Yeah, good morning, Commission. How is everyone doing?
We're well, thank you. And you?
Fine, thank you.
Hi, Rickford.
Good. Yeah, I really wanted to just quickly chime in. And like I stated in the email with Bonnie, I was not aware that this commission was working on a public art policy per se. But what I could say that since obviously the mural that's in Town Hall, the council through the Administration Education Committee has started to work, and I'm going to be sending out a draft for the November meeting that will be discussed. So I don't think that we want to duplicate work. And as far as a committee, that would be something that will be put together by the council. So I was a little confused. I thought this commission was a commission that gives recommendation to council per se. So I wouldn't think that that would be in your purview, but someone please correct me if I'm wrong. But we are currently working on that, and I will invite members from this commission to attend that meeting to opine and provide input into the policy that will be for the entire town. So I would be sending that draft out in a couple of weeks for the November meeting, and I will send it out to Bonnie.
Any comments, questions?
Well, may I just
Yeah, go ahead.
add to that, because it's fairly important, Rickford, if you're bringing this information back to the council. While we don't have the ability to make formal recommendations or have power of over the town budget, Bonnie and I have been exploring. There are a lot of resources outside the town. If the council is talking about initiatives such as the Black Lives Matter mural, which is beautiful, a lot of that is coming from the town in terms of support. And if I'm not mistaken, I saw the minutes of this discussion. Our town manager, Robert Smith, commented there is always concern about who's going to pay for this. Now, I have some additions to my report when we finish this part. I have been exploring ways that we can get fairly substantial art projects, as Bonnie may have mentioned to you, things like permanent murals on the sides of buildings, possibly sculpture placed in front of buildings such as the new library. And so we're exploring big projects that would require support financially outside the town, and those resources are available. So I just wanted to make that comment that we're looking outside just the boundaries of the town for support to the arts, because as we've discussed, a lot of people pass through the town from neighboring towns on their way to work or commuting, who could be attracted by art to stop in our town and benefit us economically. So I just wanted to make those comments. But Bonnie, you were inviting other comments.
Could I just respond to that? And I think that was important. Thank you for that. And I do appreciate that, because that's also outlined in the policy. I think the town as well would have to take the initiative to invest in public art as well.
Yes,
and that will be outlined in the policy in regards to budget funding around public art. But it does also outline outside funding. And just so you know, I don't know if everyone knows this, Hartford Public Given did provide a large sum of the funds for the mural in town. I think the part that was a cost to the town, and it wasn't tangible cost because it's actual manpower that was involved in helping with that was involved, but there weren't any actual funding that came from the town per se. That was just the resource of some folks from Leisure Service that Dave Malesko was involved in the process. So, but a lot of that funding came from the Hartford Public Given.
Thank you, Rickford. And after comments that Bonnie's invited, I have a second part to my report, which is related to that. So please, Bonnie, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had one question of Rickford. I had been made aware that his Dan Riley on Prospect Street had offered to have the cows that he has on his lawn placed on the town green. And I guess he was told that it wasn't going to be accepted because there was no ordinance or there were no regulations. I wasn't quite sure what the reasoning was, because it seemed like he was willing to fund everything and actually provide liability insurance. So I was just curious if that was one reason that you started this work, or what actually happened. Sorry about the fact.
Okay, I'll go back and give you a chronological outline of what took place. Now, in regards to the cows, that was an email that I saw that came from Sharon Mann to Robert Smith, our previous town manager, in regards to, she was going around and she spoke to this gentleman with the cows, and she was trying to get that on the town green. The reason why that did not happen, when we put the mural, when the council approved, at least the majority of the council approved the mural in town hall, there were other members of the council that did not approve of it and had concerns that there weren't a policy put in place. So when that took place, the council decided through committee that we need to put a policy in place, and that's where that all came about from. And I think with conversations with Robert, when it came up with the cows on the town, I think it's prudent to go ahead and put a policy in place before we move forward with any other public art. And that was just us taking those steps to make sure that, we have a policy, and then we know exactly how we can move forward with public art instead of just convoluting the whole process and making it very
and
uneasy for some members.
Was the owner of the cows made aware of this? I just want to make sure that when someone reaches
The
out,
owners of the cow never contacted the town. This was all done through Sharon Mann and an email.
Okay, all right. That was not. I didn't understand that. That's why I was surprised that it was.
This was a recommendation from Sharon Mann.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good, because that is, we have a very strong dairy background in this community, and I thought that those eventually would be something that would really have some significance to the town. put that along with the drum, and you've kind of got what the economy was like here up into the 20th century. Okay. If there are no other questions, Bob, would you like to go ahead with your report?
Yes. Please go ahead, Rickford.
Yeah, based on my understanding and review of the emails, this was apparently Sharon was going around and she saw the cows, approached the gentleman and made the recommendation to the town manager to give the approval to put the cows on the town green.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear because
Okay.
I know you're saying that we rejected him, but I just wanted to clarify that.
Okay, thank you. Bob?
Yes, well, that was the major item, but related to that, and Rickford, thank you for your comments. In fact, I thought you were going to mention, but it hasn't progressed that far. The Hartford Foundation, I reported previously to our commission, has given an endowment, as it were, to the town of Bloomfield as well as surrounding towns of $100,000 to be spent as we decide, not at a town level, but there's a committee, and actually I'm a member of that committee. It's the I always have to look at the name because the Bloomfield Community Fund. And that consists of $50,000 in cash to be spent immediately and $50,000 that's in the bank that the committee can spend the proceeds from. And they have not made a commitment, but this may be an initial grant with others in the future. I have been advocating on that committee that a very important aspect of the grants we make should be for public art in the town. Now, I do have to report, as a lot of administration does get bogged down. We've met now for 4 months and have not even gotten to considering grants yet. It's all been administrative, who's going to serve in what roles and that type of thing. But I did want to report that that is out there, and that is, as it were, cash in hand. We can't spend it all on art, but I am advocating, and others on the committee have supported that a significant portion of that should be devoted to some art project on a permanent basis in the town. The other I wanted to report is I've mentioned a number of times over the last couple of years that the West Hartford Art League is a very good prototype for us for how to get public art done. You may be aware that they just completed a project in the town of West Hartford where they commissioned 10 bus shelters in town to be decorated on a permanent basis with art. And that was supported by the Roberts Foundation, which specifically has a mission to support public art. So they're another one out there that when we have something to propose, are available. The last item is that I also serve at the University of Hartford on their art school board, and the art school at the University of Hartford has initiated a formal alliance with the Art League to do projects together. And that kind of brings the Art League over our border, as it were, because we've discussed before, the university resides in part in our town. I've had discussions with their dean, Nancy Stewart, about having the university and their art school involved in some public art projects. It could be in the area of students who help us plan or design or actually execute art projects. So all those things are out there, needless to say, with the same handicaps everyone is suffering. We're not able to put very much into into action yet, but a little bit of encouragement over recent weeks that people are thinking about this, and there are resources when we can start something in earnest that we very likely will be able to execute a project. So that's my report for this morning.
Thank you for all the work and the information, and hopefully we'll be able to make a contribution to the subcommittee's work, and so that we don't have duplication here. Any other questions or comments for Bob? Okay. Status of the complete streets policy.
Okay, I guess that would be me.
I think so.
Yeah, it's and David's here. It's right now. It's before the land use and economic development subcommittee. They had solicited comments from both the CEEC and the Planning and Zoning Commission. The Planning and Zoning Commission did discuss the item at their last meeting and voted to support the policy. So the comments will be transmitted to their for their agenda on next Tuesday meeting. I think at 6:30, I believe is the time. So there'll be further discussion. At some point, it's going to have to go back to the council with this COVID thing. I know we're still out another general public meeting before the council would actually take a vote or consider it. So once the Land Use and Economic Development Committee sends it back to the council, we'll have to discuss how that public hearing will be conducted. Given the fact that we can't do them in person, we'll have to try to do our best with the Zoom. So I believe David Mann has his hand up if you want me to.
Let me go to Michelle first, and then I'll go to David. Michelle?
Thank you, Bonnie. Jose, I'd just like to know what policy is being reviewed. As far as I knew, the vendor was supposed to rewrite the policy. And
No,
then the
sorry.
vendor was agreed to rewrite the policy. I was even asked to submit an alternative, which I did. So what's the policy?
The alternative has, well, the Land Use Economic Development Committee will take your alternative and give direction to the consultant. Again, the consultant's working right now for the Land Use Economic for the town council. So, it's whatever the Land Use Economic Development Subcommittee decides to, to put into the policy, that will go back to the consultant for rewriting. So that'll be discussed at the next Tuesday's meeting. And they're going to take the input from CEEC, from the EDC, from the Planning and Zoning Commission. And I assume they're going to discuss it and make a decision as to what policy to bring forward to the council.
So how then will you incorporate all of those comments? Somebody has to rewrite it.
Well, there'll be discussion. Obviously, they're going to look at your comments, your alternative policy, your comments. They're going to look at what CEC's input is, and I'm again, David's here, so I don't want to speak for the council.
Well,
Once they get all that input, they're going to debate it and say, okay, here's the direction that we recommend the council go at, and they'll make their own recommendation to the council, which will then have a public hearing and then may be tweaked even more after that. So, but again, I don't want to speak for David, and he's here. So
okay, so in answer to my first question, then, at the point that you have all these comments, will they just be sent separately to council, or are you going to compose a draft? Or is the vendor going to compose a draft, or what's the story there?
no, I will send them up. I mean, right now, yeah, they'll be sent along with the agenda this week for the subcommittee to look at in preparation for next Tuesday's meeting.
Okay, Michelle, let me have David get into this conversation. It might clear things up. Can you access him, Jose?
No,
He's
I'm
here.
here.
You there? Okay, David.
Thanks for the question. Yes, our committee has been looking at this. It's been on and off for quite some time. It's been kicked around to the admin and education. I request Jose to bring it before the TPZ, as this is could be a very important portion of the update of the town's plan, the community plan of development. And you should also know that in the public safety committee, they're looking at traffic calming, which is another important part of a complete streets program. So things are happening, but I agree that with Michelle, there's a lot on the table that has to be put back together. And frankly, we're looking for a staff recommendation at some point before the council can adopt this. I understand the work that the EDC has put in on reviewing the Complete Streets program, and that it's been kind of left, what's the right word, to be resolved. The questions that were posed by the EDC and what the consultant has to input. I don't know that there's been any input from the consultant since your last meeting. So I guess it behooves us all to get back together and put the thoughts together in a policy that we can then, not a policy, but ideas that we can send back to the consultant who can then finalize this policy with staff input. And that sounds like a lot of words, but the point is that it seems to me that this is a worthwhile concept of complete streets, because it gives us an opportunity to think ahead of what we want to see on in some of these public improvements, some of which are not done by the town, they're done by utility companies and so forth, and the state, as well as being a leg up for accessing state and CROG funds for improvements that we would like to see. So we'd like to see that policy come forward, and yes, there's more work to be done. Jose is going to bring something to us in November. Hopefully it will have incorporated the comments that the EDC has made, so that maybe making it a bit easier to direct the consultant to move forward and finalize the document. I don't know the condition of the information that we're going to receive, but I'm hopeful that it could be packaged soon after that. I think I share some of Vice Chair Benoni's comments that we have to put this back together somehow so that it satisfies us all.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, so looking forward to hearing an update on this as it moves along. Okay, COVID-19 town policy update. Jose, is that you? Is that Michelle? Is that both of you? I know Michelle is our co-chairing something, and this is not you. Okay, Jose.
Our policies, I mean, the town hall still remains open, and under the way we've been operating since June, I think the week of June 8th is, you can walk in, and again, we have to be escorted, so we do have protocols at least in place till we hear otherwise. I haven't heard anything about meetings. I know the council's been talking about doing some hybrid meetings for the council, but I haven't heard anything from that. We did have, as Michelle is a co-chair of the long-term economic recovery committee, we have been meeting on almost on a weekly basis. We've had a series of 4 webinars, which last one I want to thank Martin for participating in. I thought was very good. I had talked to Betsy Painter yesterday as a follow-up to that regarding how can we promote the services of her Small Business Development Corporation better as a resource for businesses that are starting up and need some help. So we had a good conversation, and we'll be following up, and I'll be putting some resources up on our webpage regarding that. So, and we have we're still trying to schedule a roundtable. Michelle, maybe you want to describe what we're doing there?
As a matter of fact, I wanted to ask if Mike Goman or Denise are here today, because
hang on, let me promote them.
They both are, yeah.
if-
Denise has her hand up.
Denise.
Denise has her hand up. I just noticed.
Okay, well, what I'm going to do is punt to Denise, because she's the expert with regard to the scheduling, particularly for the roundtable. And glad to have one of our members serving on it, who is Judge Stephen Zellman. Be happy to have him there, but I punt to you, Denise, because you have all the stuff.
Unmute, Denise. Unmute.
I did, and it didn't click that way.
There
Sorry.
you go.
Good morning. Right now, I've only heard from a few of the members on who they want on the panel. I'm still waiting on Vera to get back to me. We had scheduled it for the end of October for the roundtable discussion. and Michelle, I want to have this discussion later with you, wondering if we should move it off till after the election, because of everyone's focus being on the election that week before. So, but we're, and I'm still waiting to hear back from the mayor if that date was okay with her yet.
Okay.
Okay, so we're
Yeah.
following up. I mean, we got great response from the people that were, you know, in on the seminars that we did, the webinars that we did. And, you know, as you said, Martin, thank you for that. But we're still waiting to hear on that. I do have a meeting today with Betsy Painter. Jose, you talked with her, and I'm also talking with her today, to see just what we can do for Bloomfield businesses through that agency too, for the smaller businesses. So,
Well, I just want to say, I can't say enough about the contribution that Goman and York, both Mike and Denise, have made to the town of Bloomfield with regard to herding us together and getting the interests and comments and concerns of both coordinators and the mayor, and having already had a beautiful program that they had done on their own, to be able to share that with us and share that with Bloomfield. I think we have profited greatly by that. And I think that if you have the opportunity, please look at the seminars. They're worth looking at. Refer them also to business people that you know in the community, because I think they can have a great positive effect on giving those folks some support, because particularly the restaurant community in Bloomfield really needs it. So support them when you can. And thank you both, Mike and Denise. You've done a wonderful job, and you certainly have my appreciation.
thank you.
Thank you. Very nice comments. I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. And the discussion of the bylaws, Michelle, I think we've addressed that already. Am I correct?
What
That looks like it.
What are you looking for, Bonnie?
The last thing, it says discussion of bylaws, meeting cancellations. I think we discussed that when we were talking about.
I think we covered it.
Yeah, so do I.
Okay.
Any new business? I have just a couple of comments. One, I think you all saw the email saying that Martin is going to be leaving us and moving on to other things closer to his home community. And I just want to thank you, Martin. It's been a pleasure working with you in all kinds of matters over the years, and you've been a great contributor to the commission, and we're going to miss you and we wish you well.
Thank you very much, and it's been a great honor to serve with everyone. So I'll miss.
Stay in touch.
I'll miss the commission. Thank you.
Okay. And Michelle?
Well, I'd especially like to thank Martin for all of the contributions that he has made. It's been a pleasure sitting next to you for quite a period of time, and even sharing our comments back and forth and having the benefit of your great experience. Quite frankly, I didn't think we'd be able to keep you captive this long, but I'm grateful for everything that you have done for this commission, which is quite a lot. I know you're going on to some other happier hunting ground. I can only speculate what it might be, but just want to wish you every success in whatever you do, because you bring it along with you.
Thank you very much, Michelle.
Okay.
I appreciate it very much.
Then Bonnie, did we
Yes.
forget the TIF study update? Don't we
Oh,
have?
I'm sorry. I actually did, but just let me just say one more thing and then we'll go back to that. Excuse me. I checked it off by mistake. One person leaves, another returns. Phil, we would like to formally welcome you back. You just can't seem to stay away, but as much as we're disappointed that things did not work out with our town manager, it is an absolute pleasure and a relief to have you back with us.
Well, thank you. It's good to be back too. And I'm only here for 5, 6, whatever months it takes to get a new manager that we are all comfortable with in town. And I'll be happy to participate as we go along.
Great. Again, welcome back. Thank you very, very much. And back to the TIF study.
Bonnie, I think Steve Zellman, did you want to say something? Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, under new business, I just had something I want to raise. Go ahead with TIF first.
Well, we can finish and we'll go back to TIF. Go ahead, Steve.
Okay, well, I just wanted to raise the issue again of public relations in the town of Bloomfield, which is completely absent. I get the Hartford Current, community news,
Yeah.
delivered to Bloomfield which has a heading of Windsor, Windsor Locks, and Suffield. I think this last Thursday's newspaper had 0 articles on the town of Bloomfield in that section. And I think the officials, whoever they may be, who can get the ear of the Hartford Current, need to address this as an issue, because Bloomfield is completely absent from the Hartford Current, and it is wrong. When you go on the Human Resources or the town's website, you see all the things that are going on in that new Human Resources building. There's never an article about it. There's never an example of what's going on. Unless people subscribe to that, they don't know what's going on for the seniors, for the juniors, for the bingos, for all of the various projects that are going on. And that needs to be addressed. I think it's a major problem. That's a draw and it's an attraction for the town of Bloomfield, and we need to address that.
Well, we've made a recommendation a number of times for funding for someone to handle public relations, because part of it is just getting news releases to the paper. I mean, they will put things in the paper if you give them something. But I appreciate the comment, Steve.
Thank you.
Michelle?
So in the interim, Jose, can a call to the Hartford Current, and particularly the person who writes our news, number one, or the person who's responsible in the Hartford Current to reflect community activities, particularly in that Thursday section, be encouraged to cover our news? And then could you put them in charge with somebody over at Human Services? Because, you know, newspapers nowadays are always looking for you to write their articles and their little blurbs. If that's what it takes, can somebody over there be assigned to do that? Because there needs to be some follow-up or that won't change. That's my suggestion.
Bill?
Yes, I just think that it's important to remember, as Bonnie has mentioned, that there have been numerous attempts to get a community relations person or public relations person, part-time, full-time, whatever, into the town budget unsuccessfully. And that I'll ratchet back just for a second to the code enforcement issues. And those opportunities have also been presented to become much more aggressive, hire additional people, and so forth. And the funding for those positions has not been carried out in the budget process every year. We certainly dialogue with Steve Good, the reporter at the Current. He's under, there are only 8 reporters for the Current at this point in time for the whole paper. So they're under a retrenchment, as much of the print media is, as we know, and they don't have the time and effort. And Michelle is correct. I guess if we had somebody preparing releases, they might put some of them in. But I mean, it's difficult even to get a news article in the Connecticut section, let alone something in the front page or in Steve in the community section on Thursdays in the paper. So, but we can certainly make our wishes known. There's not a problem that way. But in terms of delegating, writing up of things. Also, we do get a lot of publicity in the Bloomfield Messenger, the library, the websites, all of these. They used to be transitional. Now they're really the main leaders in terms of information to communities. We're in an older community, as you know, and including myself, I have one foot in the print media and one foot in the online media. And so there's some incumbent responsibility on the part of individuals to seek some of this out. But I think we can always try to do better, and maybe the council can write a letter or something to the Current and see if we can't improve coverage of our town.
And one more thing, Jose, when you talk to the Current, I brought this up a number of times, although it exists in the hard copy, in the e-Current, our public notices do not exist in our edition. We have Essex and things down the shore, nothing for our town.
Is that the one you actually get delivered to your house?
This is the e-Current. This is the digital edition only.
Yeah.
And they are not there and have not been there for, I can't.
I think I've inquired about that before, and I think they only do one edition.
No, they never. It has never been.
They don't do multiple e-editions.
Well, then for some reason, all we're getting is the shore because that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Maybe for the real estate transactions, yes, but not for the public notices. And it's just a little disconcerting that they
Bonnie, we
can't.
have a
seem to
hand
fix it.
raised.
Yes, Rickford. Rickford?
Yeah, thank you, Bonnie. I just wanted to add, and we had this discussion at our September Administration Education Committee, and understand the importance of having a public relationship person on staff, because I don't think we can rely on the Hartford Current or any other means of communication. I think someone has to be in-house coordinating everything that's going on. I think Bloomfield has a lot of positive stuff happening, but I think the reality is someone has to tell our story. And if we rely on the Current or someone else to do it, they're not going to do it. So I think that's going to come up during the budget process, that it's imperative for us to make that investment into the town, because the return on investment it will be unbelievable for the town of Bloomfield. We need to tell our story, and we need to have someone in-house coordinating that effort, revamping our website, because our website is not user-friendly. So there's a lot of steps that we need to take as a community, and I think it's important to have that person.
Okay, we support that.
Even
Have
if
it
it's
for a long
part-time,
time.
per se.
Thank you. Okay, back to the TIF study. Update, is it Mike, Denise, who's involved with that?
Mike's going to take that.
Okay, Mike, unmute yourself, please.
There we go. Good morning. The last, what I hope is about a 95% final draft of the TIF study went over to Jose yesterday or Friday. I've forgotten which now.
I saw it yesterday.
And so I think we're in pretty good shape. We'll let Jose review it and see if he thinks we've covered everything that needs to be covered, or if we need to elaborate on anything, and then it'll get out for a wider circulation review before it becomes, completely public. So we look forward to having everybody have a look at it and give us their feedback. We'll make whatever adjustments we need to make, and it'll be final.
Oh, that's great news. Jose, is there funding in the budget for this to go to the next step?
Well, I think we left it, we gave back the 65 that was put aside for legal review, which I think was probably on the high side anyway.
Yeah.
With the understanding that once they took a look at it and decided exactly what the scope of services would be needed to take it to the next step, we'd go back to the council and hopefully get an appropriations to have the attorney, Mike Andriana, take a look at it.
Been a long time coming, but I guess sometimes you have to wait for things. Thank you. And thank you for the work that your folks are doing, Mike.
Making a lot of work.
I know. We know, and it is appreciated. Any other new business? Going back to that? Or
I think you have David Mann wanting to say something about the
okay, David?
Yes, thank you. Mike and Don, great job on the draft. I thought it was very thorough. I had some questions about, and obviously we're going to take this up again, but I want to get some thought about it now, is that the description of a private investment, in that section of the draft, you talk about the use of captured revolving loan funds for private inventory and operating capital. I'm not sure that is what the intent was, but is it? I thought we were just doing this for real estate and public improvements.
That's the primary use, as you point out, but under the under the TIF legislation that was passed in 2015, it gives you a lot of latitude to create all kinds of mechanisms. So we just really wanted to point that out and give you the opportunity to think about it. It doesn't mean by any means that you should do it or we're recommending you should do it. It's just a possibility.
Okay, because once it's in the document, people are going to want to take advantage of it. So I'm just thinking about how we're going to deal with that. But thanks. I just, that was a...
Well, that's, I think, part of the review process. I
Yeah.
think it would entirely be within your scope to say, that's just not something we want to entertain doing, at least in the initial phases of implementing a TIF program.
Okay. Well, I sense that the committee doesn't want to, hasn't looked at this draft yet. So we'll look at it at our land use and economic development. We'll give you some comments then. Thank you very much for your work, though.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any commissioner member updates? Any more public comment? Anything else?
I believe you have Councilman Goff under public comment.
Okay,
Raise his
sorry,
hand.
Kevin.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, good morning. Well, first of all, I just want to also thank Martin for his service on this committee. I've been coming to this committee for a long time, so I think everyone will miss him and his contributions. So thank you again for your contribution. I just want to make two comments. One, relative to the communications specialist or director or reorganization of town staff to do that, whatever. I certainly think that has been a need for a long time, as well as we talked about more blight enforcement. We talked, I think other things have come up in other contexts as far as project management. We don't have, I don't feel that we have, we have a really robust project management function within the town staff. But I also want to point out, just in terms of comments on that, in terms of budgeting that, the problem I feel as a council member that has been that has been an issue over the last several years is these have always been add-ons to what we have now. And I think that one of the things we're going to have to do, and the council has tried to initiate some of this with a study that is still not completed. We need to reorganize some of the functions of town staff, town administration, and how things are done. One of the things the finance committee took up like a year ago was we actually, our finance director at that point, did a comparison of the town budgets for Bloomfield, Simsbury, and Windsor. And it's pretty startling when you look at, and this is without the schools, but it's pretty startling when you look at the Bloomfield town budget and the Simsbury town budget. Simsbury is a larger community and a larger geographic area, and yet they spend $10 million less than we do in terms of the administration of their town. So I think one of the things that has to go hand in hand with with adding functions, and I agree, I think everyone agrees, that a more robust communication outreach a function, a redesigned website, press releases, things like that, that is a needed item. But it has to go hand in hand with a look at town administration costs and how this can be done in a way that is not just more expense tacked on. So I want to say that. The other thing I want to come back to is the discussion of public art a bit. I think want to make some corrections. I have not seen an actual written accounting of the costs associated with the mural that was done. I do understand that the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving did pay a large part of the actual artist costs, and I think there was some contributions of funds. This was discussed at I think not the most recent, but the previous admin education meeting. But there was also quite a bit of staff time, and I don't think that's de minimis either. So I do think that a discussion of things the town gets involved in, one of the reasons I voted against that was because the cost, the policy, what we were doing was not known out up front, and we still have major problems in terms of town hall being blocked off. The other thing I did want to mention was there was made comment several times that the initiative to display the former cow parade cows on the town green, was made the comment that was Sharon Mann. That's correct, but I would point out that Ms. Mann is the chair of the beautification committee, and this was an initiative of the beautification committee. So I do agree that public policy is needed for public art, but I also think that, we also have standing committees like the beautification committee, and it just seemed the whole thing seemed a little strange. But I'm looking forward to us getting a policy, and I also think that, this committee's initiatives, specifically that public art can be a catalyst for economic development and bring people to town, that's extremely important. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. Any staff report or any Goldman and York report that we?
Bonnie, I think David Mann has his hand up.
Oh, okay. No, I don't see it. Oh, now I
Okay.
see it. Okay, David.
Hang on.
Thanks. I think, I think Councilman Goff mentioned the comment that I was going to talk about beautification committee making suggestions for something that was going to be temporary.
Yeah.
So I think the arts policy might also want to consider temporary installations as well as permanent installations. Maybe some of them could be handled and dismissed rather quickly from a review, because this posed a problem, and that's the reason why they didn't put the cows on the town green. But if you'll notice, Mr. Riley put them on the on the church property, Congregational Church, because he goes there, and you can see what the impact is. You see what it might have been if it were on the town green, and it would have been gone in a month.
Hey, can you get that Bloomfield Byte?
What's that? Okay.
At any rate, yes to the public relations, very important. And I appreciate the discussions we've had so far. The TIF is something that we want to move forward by the end of the year. Our consultants, your consultants tell us we might be in a good position when the economy, if and when the economy comes back, to have all these programs in place for the 3 TIF districts. And I really look forward to more input and review by your committee of the document that was presented. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, David. Okay, I know it's been a long meeting, but there was a lot we had to cover. Are there any other significant updates that we need from either staff or Goldman and York?
Yeah, if I can just.
Yes, Jose.
I had I guess the Alexandria Manor property is being shopped. So Pacifica, the company that owns it here, is not, sorry about that.
Property, Jose, I couldn't hear you.
The Alexandria Manor property.
Oh, okay, yes.
So I've been getting a couple of questions about it. Some people that actually had a discussion with someone yesterday, and they were very much interested in the progress of our TIF. They were asking if there was any kind of a incentives or something that would help them get the project going sooner than later. And they were very much interested in starting construction fairly quickly if the town. So I'm going to have further discussions with them on there. We've also had an inquiry from the state, one of these Project Malachite, which I will send, which would purportedly provide about up to 200 jobs. It would involve basically processing some of the trash that goes to the mirror plant right now and turning it into clean energy. But they sent us a YouTube video, which I will pass along the link to the Economic Development Commission members and sort of try to gauge your interest in another town before we get seriously talking to these people. I don't want to go down a road that if people don't think this is a good fit for the town. So I will definitely send that link to you, and you can comment and let me know if this is something we should be pursuing.
Okay, thank you.
Bonnie, just from our standpoint, one thing that we are starting to raise with our client towns now is trying to get towns to look down the road a little bit with respect to the assessed value of the commercial property that's in their town. Obviously, the impact of COVID is on certain sectors in the commercial real estate industry has been pretty dramatic and is expected to continue to be dramatic for some number of years. The segments hit hardest, of course, first would be hotels. They're now saying, the data I got this morning said that in some markets, the rate of default on hotel loans is reaching 50%.
Wow.
So we're starting to see that begin to have an impact. The other sectors that have been hurt badly or are expected to be hurt badly are office and retail, of course. Office, many markets in Connecticut have been 15 to 20% vacant for a number of years. And the predictions that you read, and we spend a lot of time paying attention to this kind of thing and talking to people about what's going on out there. But, the predictions are anywhere from an additional 10% to 15% vacancy. So that means you'd be facing sort of 25 to 30% vacancy in your office sector. And that's very problematic, very concerning. Once buildings cross that sort of 20 to 25% vacancy threshold, defaults are usually on the horizon, not far away. Certainly if there be above 30% vacant, it's almost inevitable that there's a point in time when the owner decides that they're going to put the building into default. So office is a big concern. You know, we're seeing in central business districts that actual physical occupancy of office space is below 20%. And it's probably going to stay that way for quite a while. Manhattan, about a month ago, Manhattan was reporting 7% occupied. It's since come up to about 15% occupied. But that, and then let me just touch on retail. Retail, of course, we all know that, you know, independent retailers and independent food and beverage operators, you know, the predictions for those guys are anywhere from 30 to 40% that will never reopen. So when you add all this up, especially in office and retail, the impact is to lower demand. You know, you're going to have an increased amount of vacant space. You're going to have lower demand for some foreseeable future. Certainly in office, you know, many companies that we're talking to are saying that, you know, they're looking at remote working as a permanent solution for some fairly significant percentage of their staff. If even 20 or 25% of their staff become permanently remote workers, that's going to put a lot of space out there in terms of vacant space, and it's going to mean less demand. So, you know, the combination of factors is very hard on the markets, and what we're saying to towns is, look, you need to start looking 2-3 years down the road at what the value, the assessed value of your commercial real estate represents as a total of your property tax system, and start thinking through what the impact could be, you know, especially if you face a reval next year or the year after. You know, the impact of the declining demand and problems in the hotel, retail and office sectors is going to mean lower values right across the board. So what does that translate to when you start looking at tax revenue? If properties lose 10 to 50, commercial properties tend to, or if commercial properties lose 10 to 15% of their value, what does that mean for the community? We have some communities that have high concentrations of retail, some which have high concentrations of office, and some, of course, which have high concentrations of hotel, and some, of course, which have a combination of all the above. Anyway, we think it's just a discussion that you need to start thinking about. We are, in fact, running some numbers just to put some data around what some of these impacts could translate to. And I think that's just good forward thinking and maybe preparation for what we might face in 21 and 22. I had a conversation with a bunch of hotel people last week, and I mean, they were all depressed, but by the time I got off the phone with them, I was depressed because they're talking about the travel industry not coming back until the start of 23. You know, they're expecting this to be with us through 21 and 22 before consumer confidence will come up to the point where we'll see sort of the 70% occupancy levels that hotels basically need to operate at to be economically viable. So, you know, I think we just need to be talking about this, and we're working on some of the data, but we're also having these kinds of conversations with our clients so that you can start to think it through a little bit. And I'm sure this will be something on the agenda of the EDC for quite a while, is the whole issue of COVID recovery, what's going on, and what we expect the future is going to look like. So okay. on that cheery note.
Oh yeah, that's a reality we do have to look at and to plan for. We agree with you. Right. Is there a question? Oh yeah, we know that, Kevin. Kevin's just saying we just went through a reval. We have 4 or 5 years, which is true.
That's a good thing.
Are there any other questions, comments? The next meeting is November 10th, Tuesday, November 10th. So it will be post-election, hopefully post-election results, we'll see. Jose, Bob and Rickford and I would like to continue to talk. Can we shut off recording and can we just stay on this Zoom meeting? Sure. Be able to do that? Okay, so
I could do that.
I'd appreciate that. Is that okay, Bob and Rickford?
Absolutely. I was going to ask after the end of the meeting how we wanted to do that.
Oh.
That works.
Okay, everybody, thank you very much. Stay well, stay safe, and we will see you next month.
We have a motion to adjourn?
Oh, yes, motion to adjourn. I'm so sorry.
So moved.
Second?
Support.
Yeah, no, Martin gets the last stay. Okay,
Absolutely.
second by Martin, and see you all next month. Be well.
Good luck, Martin. Thank